Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Rabbi, and welcome back.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay. We are in Perek Beis, chapter 2, Mishna Hey, Mishna 5. V'oid Amar Yehuda ben Bava. Yehuda ben Bava also said. Now, without getting too much in detail, Yehuda ben Bava was in the previous Mishnah where he mentioned a certain stringency. And now we're going to mention another stringency from Yehuda ben Bava. Quick introduction. In Mishnah 3, the sages drew a distinction between a non-residential area, such as a garden and a karpef, and a residential area, such as a courtyard. If you remember, we had something called a gina, a garden, or a karpef. A karpef is an area outside of the city that's used for storing wood. It is not considered a residential area. Both the garden and the karpef are not considered residential areas. And a courtyard is a residential area. People do a lot of things in the courtyard. So according to the Chachamim, the sages in Mishnah 3, carrying in a non-residential area, even one enclosed by complete partitions, is forbidden if it measures more than 2 beis sa'ah. A non-residential area, even if it's enclosed by walls, if it is going to be larger than 2 beis sa'ah, you cannot carry in it. It's too similar to a public area. That's a karpef. Okay, it's not residential, and it's going to be larger than 2 beis sa'ah. Now, a beis sa'ah, as we had previously, is an area in which you would plant a sa'ah of seeds. 2 beis sa'ah is double that. As we're going to see, 2 beis sa'ah equals 5,000 square amas. So, according to the Chachamim, in a previous Mishnah, if you have a non-residential area, that even if it's enclosed by walls, if it's larger than 2 beis sa'ah, you may not carry in it. But carrying in a residential area is permitted no matter how large it is. Okay, so remember that opinion of the Chachamim in the previous Mishnah. If it's not residential and it has walls, if it's going to be, once it's more than 2 beis sa'ah, you can't carry in it. If it's 2 beis sa'ah, you could carry in it, or less you could carry in it. If it's a non-residential area. If it's a residential area, it can be as big as you want, and it has walls around it, you're going to be able to carry in it. That's the Chachamim. Now we have Yehuda ben Bava's opinion, which is stricter. V'oid Amar Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava. Another thing Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava said was Hagina v'karpef, a garden or a karpef, this large area. Shehein shivim amma b'shirayim al shivam amma b'shirayim. That they are 70 and a fraction more of 70 cubits plus a fraction by 70 cubits plus a fraction, which they say means 2/3 of an amma. If it's 70 by 2/3 amas, by 70 and 2/3 amas, mukefes geder gavaya asaret tvachim, and it's surrounded by a fence that's 10 tvachim high. Metatlin b'seicha, you may carry in it. Ubelvat sheyeheba shoymira, but it has to be either there a watching. Shamira means a little watch hut where a person, let's say, who takes care of the garden or animals, basically lives there regularly. Oy beis dira, or there's an apartment there, a dwelling, which means that the owner of these places sometimes comes and stays there. Or needs to be near the city, which means it needs to be within the Tchum Shabbos. It needs to be within 2,000 cubits, which means even on Shabbos you could go there. If you have something that is 70 and 2/3 amas by 70 2/3 amas, and it basically has a certain residential usage by one of these things, then we say that you can carry in it. So according to Yehuda ben Bava, even when it's residential, there's a limit of 70 and 2/3 amas. You're gonna again, it has to be residential, and when it's residential, it has a limit of 70 and 2/3 amas squared. But let's say it's not residential, then I don't care how small it is, you can't carry in it. That's going to be ben Bava. So Yehuda ben Bava disagreed with the Chachamim in 2 things. Number one, he said that the limit of size applies even to residential area, and if it's not residential, you can't carry it at all, even if it's surrounded by walls. Okay, that's Yehuda ben Bava. Now, the next opinion of the Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda Omer. Yehuda says, "Afilu ein ba elabar v'siacha ma'ara." Metatlin b'seicha. Rabbi Yehuda agrees with Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava in the sense that, it's going to have to be 70 2/3 squared in order to carry in it, and it's got to be considered residential. However, Rabbi Yehuda says the residentiality, if there's such a word, doesn't have to be, as Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava said about somebody being there, that's going to be close to the city, as long as there is some kind of a water hole that people use to drink from, it's considered residential. These three things where it says, even if there's only there a bar is translated as a pit. It's round. A siach, which they translate as a ditch, is long and narrow. A ma'ara is a vault, is square and covered and has an opening in its cover. These are three examples of things that store rainwater. People drink from it. And that, according to Yehuda, is residential enough to be able to carry in it, again, if it's 70 2/3 amas. Now, on the bottom, they bring down here a very interesting opinion from Tosfos. Even according to Ben Bava, that says you have to have 70 2/3 square and some kind of a residential level of somebody, of a watchman or somebody temporarily sleeps there, it's near the city. That's talking about these things where you have call it a weak residential usage, right? It's not like if you have this one guy in a hut and he's there, or this person, the owner, who sometimes stays there, or nobody's there, but it's close to the city. Let's call that a weak residential activity. That is where Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava says there's a limit, even though it's residential, there's a limit of 70 and 2/3 amas square to its size for what to carry in it. More than that, you can't carry in it. But let's say we're talking about a chutzner, a courtyard in front of houses, where in those days, those courtyards were very much used. Then even Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava agrees that it doesn't make a difference how big it is, you can carry in it, because that's real residential usage. And therefore, if it's a strong residential usage, and of course it has a wall around it, then you can carry in it no matter what the size of it is. All right, so we have two opinions. Now we have a third opinion. Rabbi Kiva says, Afilu ein ba achas mikol elu, even if it doesn't have any of these things that we mentioned above. Metatlin b'seicha, you may carry in it. As long as it has the dimensions of 70 and 2/3 amas by 70 2/3 amas. Here, Rabbi Akiva is the closest to the opinion of the Chachamim we had previously, because the Chachamim said it's where it's not residential where we have this limit of where we have this size limit. If it's residential, it can be as big as you want. If it's not residential, then it's got to have, then there's a limit to how big it could be before you can carry in it. And what's that limit, says Rabbi Akiva? 70 and 2/3 amas. If it has that, you can still carry in it. Once it's more than that, you can't carry in it. Now, the Bartanura points out that the difference between Rabbi Akiva and the Chacham of the previous Mishnah is a very small one. And that is, if the square footage of 70 and 2/3 by 70 and 2/3 is?
The square.
Well, how much is when you have 70 and 2/3 amas by 70 2/3 amas? What's the square amas, total square amas of the area?
4,900 and
70 and 70 is
4,900 and
Come on, you're close.
about 100.
so
The answer is
4,994
square. He says it is slightly less than 4,994 square amas.
Okay.
And so they don't see. Now that's Rabbi Akiva, because Rabbi Akiva said it's got to be 70 and 2/3, right? The Chachamim said that it can be 2 beis sa'ah. That's 5,000 cubits. So it's about a 6 cubit difference between Rabbi Akiva and the Chachamim in the previous Mishnah as to what's the size limit to the non-residential area. All right. Now, Mishnah concludes. So they say here that this next argument is talking about where you have a non-residential area, you can carry in it. Okay, it's 2 beis sa'ah, or it's your 70 and 2/3 by 70 and 2/3. Yeah. But the point is, from the way they bring it down here, is that it's exactly that. You're at your final point. It's 2 beis sa'ah, either it's 2 beis sa'ah, which 2 beis sa'ah we said is 50 by 50.
Mhm.
Okay, so in let's say you're at the limit. You're at the limit.
It's actually 4,933.66.
What is
70 and 2/3 times 72 thirds.
the article says 4994? Should I tell you?
Just 493.66.
All right, whatever you say. They say 494.
Okay, close enough.
Now, the next machlokes is that even if you hold that in a residential area that has a wall, you're going to be permitted. Okay, if it's 2 beis sa'ah or 70 by 2/3 by 70 or smaller. This next machlokes talks about when you exactly have. They say the 2 beis sa'ah. I think it means either the 2 beis sa'ah or the 70 by 2/3 by 72 But you're at the final point.
Mhm.
You know. Okay, Rebbe Lezer Omer, if its length is more than its width, even by 1 amma, you cannot carry in it. According to Rebbe Lezer, it's got to be a square or very close to being a square. Because would it be if the length would be less than an amma more than the width, it'd still be okay. Once it becomes an amma more, Rebbe Lezer says you cannot carry it anymore. It was not residential. You cannot carry it anymore. It was only permitted when it was basically a square. Rabbi Yosi says, "Afilu arka pishnayim barachba." Its length can be double its width. Rectangle, betatlin b'seicha, you'd be able to carry in it. So that's the machlokes here. You got this non-residential area. It's at the point of where we say, okay, this is the final, this is the biggest it could be as a non-residential area to be able to carry in it. But Rebbe Lezer says it's got to be a square. Yosi says the length can be double the width, but the length can't be more than double the width. If it's more than double the width, then even Rebbe Yosi says you're not going to be able to carry in it. But as long as it's up to the length double the width, then you'd be able to go ahead and carry it, which means even if it as long as 100 amas and as narrow as 50 amas, carrying there is permitted. The length may not be more than twice its width over 100 amas. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Rabbi.
Rabbi. And again, welcome back.
Thank you.